Welcome to Hot Take, the tech news podcast from AndroidGuys.com. Today is August 28th, 2018. My name is Matt Adams, and joining me today are editors Andrew Myrick and Donna Vajeska. How you guys doing today?
What's up, Matt? How you doing?
Hey.
What's going on, man?
So, what's going on is a ton of news coming out of Germany. We are right in the beginning parts of IFA 2018, and companies are bombarding us with press releases and news and new products. Um, and one of the most exciting ones that we've seen today is that LG is coming out with two new devices. These were really flew under the radar. No one has talked about these at all. But we're getting the LG G7 One and LG G7 Fit. And these are two devices that are designed to kind of slot under the regular LG G7 and LG's lineup. The cool thing about the LG G7 One is that it will actually feature stock Android instead of using LG's skin. While the LG G7 Fit is still going to continue using LG's UX, but they're both coming with Android 8.1, so that's pretty good selling feature. And right now we don't have any pricing or availability, but we are expecting to see more at IFA, and we'll update you as we get those details. Guys, what do you think about LG bringing out some new devices?
Well, I mean, they're called the LG G7 One and Fit, right? So what's the difference between the One, the Fit, and the original G7? What is it? The Think or the ThinQ?
Yeah, we're not gonna say think or think you because it's stupid.
Sorry, it's a bad word. My
Yeah, that's banned in the offices.
bad.
So some of the things that are the same on the LG G7 One and LG G7 Fit, just those two devices, are the display. They both have a 6.1 inch 1440p display with a notch. They both have 4 gigs of RAM. Both have 32 gigabytes of external storage. Both have a 3000 milliamp hour battery, an IP68 rating, headphone jack, and the dimensions are the same.
Yeah, that's about the same as the G7. The G7, redacted. That
Yeah.
word.
Yeah. The big changes here are the LG G7 One will have a Snapdragon 835 processor, which is last year's flagship.
Gross.
The Fit will have a Snapdragon 821, which
Double
is,
gross.
yeah, that's the processor that powered a lot of phones in late 2016, like the original Pixel. Um, the GPUs are different too. The one has a Adreno 540. The Fit has a 530. The cameras are different in all three. The original G7 has the dual camera setup that a lot of people love. It's one of my favorites. But the one in the Fit, I'm gonna trip over these words repeatedly. Um, but they both have single camera setups in the back. The one has a 16 megapixel f1.6 shooter with a 71-degree wide angle lens, and then the Fit it also has a 16 megapixel, but the aperture is f2.2, which that's not great compared to what we've seen from the likes of Samsung and LG recently. So that's
Right.
not wonderful, and it has a 76-degree wide angle lens. There's some other small differences too, like the radios. The one has Bluetooth 5.0, and the Fit has 4.2 low energy, and then the weight is similarly off. So there are small differences. I'm just wondering how they're going to stand out from each other, really, unless there's a big price difference. Because you're going to walk into a store if they have all three and be like, I don't know what I'm supposed to get.
Right. I mean, the clear answer is the LG G7 redacted,
Right.
since that's the one that actually has modern specs. These ones seem to be like almost last year and the year before's model rather than having current modern specifications.
Yeah, but that stock Android, man.
That stock Android is pretty.
Andrew is a fellow lover of LG devices and stock Android. Do you think the one is anything worth picking up, depending on price?
If it depends on the price.
Yeah.
What I'm excited for is the fact that this seems to be like the flagship Android One device now. Like
Th-
you can hem and haw about the Snapdragon 835, but we have not seen, at least from my recollection, we have not seen a phone with these kind of specs in them, or with as beefy as a processor as the G7 One will have. Because that's been mostly reserved for like mid-range devices, like the what is it, like the Moto X4, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
That's an
Another
awesome point. Because basically, when you look at it, the G7 One has the same specs as the Pixel 2 XL.
Right.
I mean, sure, you've got that notch, which people, that's a love it or hate it thing. Doesn't bother me. But the Pixel 2 XL is the best performance I've ever seen in a phone. And you have those specs and, in my opinion, better hardware. Because I'm not a fan of how the pixels look. So, that's a
I mean, my
selling point
biggest
for me.
problem, I had the Pixel 2 XL for our Android Pie review, and I have the G7. The G7 is still my daily driver. The Pixel 2 is just unwieldy. Like it's super
Yeah.
big compared to the G7. It's so much more like easier to hold and maneuver and not have to worry about using two hands. And whereas if you can give me the G7 with stock Android, even on last year's processor, but the rest of the specs are the same, I'll be pretty happy. I'll be a little disappointed about the camera, but LG's trying to do something different here, which is something I like to see.
I have given LG its fair share of crap over the years for some of the things that they've done, which have been really stupid. But I give them full marks here. Pulling out a LG or pulling out an Android One flagship is awesome. I love to see it. I hope more people follow in their footsteps, even if we are getting last year's processors and stuff. I mean, I've never once had a problem with the Snapdragon 835 in any phone. And obviously, stock Android is a huge selling point to a small portion of people out here. So yeah, bring on more Android One devices with flagship specs, because I'll be loyal to those rather than any other phone designer out there.
Plus, one more thing on the software side, it looks like you're going to get stock Android from Android One, but you'll also have some of LG's extra stuff thrown in. So I'm interested to see what kind of software stuff you'll be able to find since LG's not throwing their skin on this one.
Yeah, you'd have to think that they'll ship like their own camera software and stuff like that, because that's a lot of the special sauce and great cameras are actually in the software. So I don't think that they would just ship Google's, solution for cameras out there. But yeah, LG's skin is so heavy that you wonder what little pieces that they're gonna pull to throw into this as apps or other features like that.
Yeah.
Donovan, what do you think? Do you think that Android One devices? Do you think that's a market out there that people are really going to try to be buying into if there's flagship phones for it?
I think so. If Android or if Google really wants Android to stand out, Android One is the way to go. And I think flagships obviously are what people want. Those are the phones that really make people, buy, thousands of units rather than hundreds or dozens. I think my main point of concern here is the fact that they slapped the G7 label on there when neither of these devices compares in terms of power to the actual G7.
Sure.
It really bothers me. I wish instead of going with the G7 naming, they would have gone with like ThinQ One or something if they're really all in on that branding.
Sure, but devil's advocate, they want to move devices, right? So the LG G7 is what everybody knows. So they're going to get a little more of a bump there. So, I mean, I guess I can understand it, but I totally understand where you're coming from, too. Because these aren't LG G7s. The LG... G7 Fit basically has the same specs as the LG G6.
Yep.
And the LG G7 One basically has the same specs as the LG V30. So, Andrew, what do you think? Do you think it's unfair to call them G7s?
I don't know whether I necessarily think it's unfair, because companies have reasons for their naming rhetorics or whatever you want to call it. But we've seen LG rebrand the G7 or the G6 and the V30 to include this whole ThinQ initiative, but now they're releasing two new devices that have nothing to do with it. Like, from what I can see, there's no like extra.
Yeah.
You don't get the Google Assistant button that you have on the G7 on the G7 redacted that you get on the other one. So I'm wondering what their game plan really is. Like, are we going to see a LG V40 ThinQ, or are these two devices, the one and the Fit, really just one-offs, or what? What are they really trying to do? But we can't really tell yet until we see more devices down the road.
Yeah, we saw stories late last year and early this year that LG was trying to change up their release schedule and how they put out phones, because they were doing the same thing Samsung was, and it wasn't working because Samsung was killing them. I just wonder if we'll see like a new line, like twice a year we'll see two lines come out, and it's like the LG G7 ThinQ, LG G7 One, LG G7 Fit, and then at the end of the year we have the V40, the V40 ThinQ, the V40 One, the V40 Fit. Like, if they'll stretch it out like that to give people a little more of an option, to mix and match those features that they want.
What about AT&T users? All they have is the V35 ThinQ that came out of absolutely nowhere.
Does anyone like have that phone? I mean, I've never seen a person with a LG V35.
I'm sure tens of people bought them.
It's the essential phone of LG right there.
Yeah.
All right, Donovan, why don't you bring up our next topic?
So earlier this morning, 9 a.m. Pacific time, Google announced that it was integrating
for people who matter.
Google announced it was integrating Google Assistant into the Nest X Yale smart lock platform. And I thought it was interesting because I have one of these at home, and one of the things that I've been wanting since day one was the ability to just talk to my Google Home and make sure the door is locked, rather than getting up to do it.
Ugh.
Like an arm. I know. I thought it was really interesting that you could integrate it into a Google routine as well. So you could have batch commands by saying like, Google, good night, and it'll lock all your smart locks, turn off all your smart lights, and make sure your smart garage door is closed or whatever you want to do there. But that was kind of cool.
So I know one of the big selling points in having a smart door like this, or a smart lock like this, is that you can see when people come and go. So if you give your mom a code and you can see when she enters the door or whatnot, is that something that we're going to be able to ask Google, or is that something that's still in the app, or did they say?
I don't think it's currently in the functionality. I think the functionality is limited to lock, unlock, and kind of check status. Is the door locked?
Right.
At the moment. But that would be really cool. When did mom walk in the door last, or what was the last code that was used, or something like that? Would be kind of cool.
Yeah, as someone who sometimes has different schedules as their significant other, it would be kind of cool to ask Google, hey, is my wife here? Is my significant other here? So you don't have to, barge into the bedroom to find out, or, when did my wife leave? So when they, took the kid to get ice cream or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, especially people that have grade school children, give the kid a code and be like, hey, did little Jimmy make it home okay? Or, whatever. Because if they use their code, then pretty clearly they're home.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Andrew, why don't you jump in for our final topic today?
Yeah, this one's not as exciting as some of the stuff we've already talked about, but it's exciting to me because it means that we may have Google's version of like a Chrome OS tablet in the form of the Pixelbook 2, which is the codename of Atlas. A couple of months ago, EV Leaks, I don't remember how to pronounce it, but his name's Evan Blass. He tweeted out saying that in addition to the Pixel 3 and 3 XL, the Pixel Watch, and new Pixel Buds, we could see a Pixelbook successor, which launched last fall alongside the Pixel 2. I think it was last fall, alongside the Pixel 2 lineup. But the cool thing about the Atlas is it's going to have a 4K display, be detachable completely from the keyboard, so hopefully it won't be like a Surface situation where you go and spend X amount of dollars for the Surface and then you have to spend even more money for the keyboard to actually turn it into a laptop.
Right.
Hopefully it just comes all together. And we're hoping to see slimmer bezels because the bezels on the Pixelbook are not very pretty. It's pretty chunky, something that you would expect from being a couple years old. And it's just, I think it's time to get rid of those bezels. Everything else is moving bezel-less. Why can't our laptops do the same? Other than from, Huawei or Dell. We've seen a couple of Chromebooks already launched. I think one of them is the HP Chromebook X2, which has a detachable, it's a 2-in-1, but it's a detachable display. That is priced around like a $600, runs, Chrome OS with an Intel Core M processor, some light graphics, but it only has like 4 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of storage, whereas with the Pixelbook 2, I'm expecting to see 128 gigs of storage, the Intel Kaby Lake chipset, and of course Chrome OS, so that Google can show off what Chrome OS on a tablet can really do.
Yeah, I mean, what
do you guys think?
What is that Kaby Lake chipset? I've never heard of that.
That is a very good question and something that I just had on the tip of my tongue and then lost it.
Isn't that the 7700s or the 7000 series?
Yeah, I think it's the seventh generation.
Yeah, because it came out in 2016, so maybe it's the 6000 generation, but it's within the last couple of years, I believe.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but with Chrome OS, like it's lightweight enough,
right?
Where you don't need to throw, the latest and greatest Intel chipsets into these things. That would be awesome, but then you would also be looking at much more expensive prices for Chromebooks, other than starting at $999, which is already super expensive for a Chromebook.
Yeah, I mean, that's looking at almost MacBook prices. It's like what's the draw of buying this premium Pixelbook when you can buy a full-fledged laptop with functionality that rivals desktops for the same price,
and not have to worry about any limitations at all.
Yeah. I totally understand where you're coming from there. I think the draw for me with a Pixelbook is one, I never have to worry about it. And that means battery life is fantastic because you don't have a ton of, processes in the background or crap you've installed or malware or browser extensions slowing down the computer. All of my browsing and a lot of my utilities are already, in Chrome. They're Chrome apps or extensions or something like that. Plus you have Android apps now. So, I mean, I don't feel like there's that much functionality that's missing in Chromebooks. And, geez, if you could get a Pixelbook 2 with, like, a stylus and a detachable keyboard for $1,000, and it's gorgeous and it's high quality and battery life's good, I mean, that is extremely compelling for me. And I don't even really need a laptop.
Yeah, that's true, especially considering the Android tablet market is really floundering. I mean, it's barely alive. But I am kind of, one thing I am kind of surprised about is the Intel Kaby Lake chipset. When Google has such strong ties to Snapdragon, I'm kind of surprised they didn't go with that new 850 always on chip for this device.
That's a good point because we're seeing Snapdragon processors in like actual laptops now. Yeah. So, I didn't think about that.
I mean, these are early.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, like these were some of the earlier rumors. There hasn't been too much really said since then about the chipset. So maybe something changed, and Google said, "Yep, sorry Intel, we're going to go swing with Qualcomm because it's always on all the benefits that the 850 has to offer."
Yeah, I mean the 850 basically puts a mobile style of chip into a laptop form factor, which means it has built-in Bluetooth, built-in Wi-Fi, built-in
LTE.
always on LTE. Yeah, exactly. And it would basically turn your laptop into a phone, but with the functionality of a laptop. It's kind of interesting in that way, where Chromebooks and MacBooks and laptops go to sleep, phones never do. They're always awake, even if the screen's off. You're running all the same programs and connectivity and all that stuff all the time, but with similar battery life, you would hope.
Yeah, I mean, and plus, if it is if the display is detachable, that would be having that functionality on the go would be awesome.
I agree. And going back to what you were saying about the tablet market, we really need something like this. And honestly, I think we need like a light version too, that could come in in the $500-$600 price range. Because I just took a look at the Huawei MediaPad M5 Pro, and unfortunately I didn't have the keyboard that goes along with it. But it's like $450, and it comes with a stylus, and it is awesome for productivity, especially when you pair it with a Bluetooth keyboard. And besides Huawei and Samsung, there's just really nobody out there doing this. And if we're not going to get more Android tablets, we need Chrome tablets, because there's a lot of us out there that really don't like iPads. I just have never been able to get into using an iPad, and there needs to be another option, because I don't want to give Microsoft my money.
Yeah, and I mean Chroma. Wow, I forgot what I was to say. Chrome OS is great, and they're really the same thing, Android and Chrome these days, because Chrome OS runs Android apps.
So, and pretty well now. I mean, there's still some glitchiness, but the last time I used it, it was pretty decent.
Yeah, you're really getting the best of both worlds there in terms of laptop and desktop functionality with mobile apps. So that's kind of cool.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for today. Thanks for joining us. If you like what you heard today, please consider subscribing on Google Play Music, iTunes, Pocket Casts, or anywhere where you can find podcasts. Also, please be sure to head over to AndroidGuys.com and click on the link for this podcast. Not only do we post the sources for all of our stories, but you can also find out more information on our sponsor, Blue Microphones. If you like how we sound, and Andrew, Donovan, and I are all using Blue Yeti microphones, you can find out how to save a ton of money picking up one for yourself. We will have a 20% discount code in the show post for this on AndroidGuys.com. Even if Blue wasn't a sponsor, we'd still sing their praises. We absolutely love them. And we're not alone. They are an award-winning company and the driving force behind professional musicians, internet creators, and countless gaming teams and Twitch streamers. Their Blue Yeti USB microphones, which we're using right now, are the internet's most popular microphones. So we definitely suggest you check them out, because we absolutely love them. So for Andrew and Donovan, I'm Matt Adams. We appreciate you joining us today, and we will see you next time.